What's up, folks? I'm Justin Khanna. Welcome to DoD episode 10. We're in the double digits of DoD land. That is too many D's. So in this episode, I'm gonna make a snack, one of the first few bites you get in more or less a tasting menu. And we're gonna do that with a play on a paratha with a little bit of fresh crab and a ton of fresh herbs. Let's get into it. So we have to make our paratha dough first. So I've got about a cup and a half of flour here, and to it we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of ghee, which is essentially just clarified butter for all you fine dining folks like me. Hit it with a pinch of salt, and now we knead this with just enough water until it makes a dough that's not sticky. And I've never done this before, so I'm just gonna eyeball it. So that looks about right. We're gonna turn that out onto our bench and just start to knead for about 5 minutes. All right, so that feels pretty good. It's pretty like elastic. It's a little bit pliable. It literally feels like Play-Doh. So we're gonna add a little bit of that ghee to a bowl. Just oil it up a little bit so nothing sticks. Pop this in there. Put a towel over the top and let it sit in a warm place for about an hour. In the meantime, let's pick through our crab. So I've just picked up a little bit of fresh crab meat here, and what I'm basically doing is just squeezing it between my fingers to make sure that there's no shell fragments. And the goal here just being to kind of like break it up at the same time and make sure that it's all the same consistency. And I think it's super important when you make bites like this to make sure that you're empathetic of your guests, because you have to assume that there's 2 kinds of people in this world. Ones that just shove food in their faces, like me, and then there's also people that are dainty, that take little tiny bites of their food, and those people usually are the ones wearing nice clothes. So my point being, don't ruin their night. Make your food nice and biteable. All right, so I've got our crab broken up so it's more or less all shredded crab now. I'm gonna season it up with just a touch of salt, olive oil, some cracked black pepper, some lemon juice, and some lemon zest. Give that a quick mix, and there we have it. Crab meat here is super sweet, so I just want to make sure that holds center stage. Next up, I've got some yogurt here that I just hung over a strainer, and that was to remove as much moisture as possible. You can save this whey, it's good for fermenting things if you want. And this yogurt is gonna be more or less our sauce for the dish. And yeah, yogurt is kind of a blank canvas, but I think I'm okay with that. I want this dish to be about the perfectly cooked paratha, seasoned crab, and all those fresh herbs. I just want the yogurt to be that creamy aspect that makes you want to take another bite, and then that acidic kick that is super nice and fresh at the beginning of a meal. So I just went ahead and added some salt to this yogurt, and I'm gonna add that to a squeeze bottle, and we'll use that to plate up later. All right, now let's pick through our herbs. I've got a little deli of ice water here. I'm just gonna kind of use a small knife if I want smaller pieces, because I more or less have a vision of how I wanna plate this. So I'm gonna just go through and pick these herbs to the size and the length that I want and make sure they chill in the ice water. But the ones that I'm using are cilantro, mint, tiny Swiss chard, tarragon, and mizuna. And our last little garnish maneuver, I'm gonna take a scallion, slice it super thin, and let it curl up in ice water. I think that's also gonna be a really nice and fresh texture and flavor to add to the snack. All right, so our paratha dough gets kneaded one more time. It's definitely rested. It feels a lot more relaxed. It's not so uptight as it was before. And what we're gonna do is separate it into 3 equal-sized balls. And this is more or less like the size of a shallot. And this sounds really big for a snack, I know. This bread is all about the technique, and because I've never done it before, I want to make sure that I get it right the first time. Because the way I see it, if you learn to follow the rules, then you can break them later. So I've got our dough ready to go. Got our trusty DoD rolling pin here. And we're just going to start rolling it out until we get to more or less like an 8-inch circle. This rolling pin is like the C-3PO of this show. It's definitely not a main character, but when it shows up, it provides entertainment, for me at least. And now's when the technique part comes in. So what we're supposed to do is add a little bit of our ghee to the bread. Maybe that was too much. So now we layer a little bit of the ghee all over the bread, do a quick dusting of flour, and now we roll. So the goal being we get a nice tight coil, and if I put too much butter in, it just ends up getting squeezed out, which is kind of nice. So we roll that up, something like that. And then we roll this out again. I was pretty fascinated when I saw this in India being made, because because my aunt, my Chachi Mina, was the one that kind of showed me how to do this. And to me, it's super interesting because it's the same principle that applies with like biscuits, where you kind of layer butter between flour, or like a French croissant, but it's from a completely different culture. All right, so we're more or less back out to a thickness where I'm comfortable again. We'll start to heat up our pan here. I've got a decently heavy, like sort of cast iron-y pan. Ideally, it's like nice, big, thick cast iron, which I don't happen to have. Lies. Ideally, it's a tandoor. But we're gonna take our paratha, brown it up, perfectly brown on both sides, and brush it with ghee as we go. Do a little cleanup action while that's cooking. We're real on this show. We're super real. Okay, that looks great. As it says, you're probably gonna have to add a little bit more ghee as you go. It's also kind of funny because this induction that I have has 2 speeds, off and hot as f. Okay, perfect. I think that buttery mouthfeel is really, really good, butter and bread. And we're gonna give this a portion right away. Gonna add a touch of salt to it as well. I just tasted a piece of the trim and it needs a little bit of salt. So when I portion this, I make it into a thin rectangle. And this is another example of setting your diner up for success, right? Because if you do a circle, they're tempted to like take a bite and then fold it up like a taco, which makes fillings come out of either end, which is not good. And who's gonna come at this from the side, right? So this makes it so it's a perfect 2-bite snack, which is perfect. So I'll bring you nice and up close for this plate up here. So we've got a few dots of our strained and seasoned yogurt, as well as our seasoned and mixed crab salad. And we're just basically tucking that in between the yogurt dots, making a little crab snake. And last, but definitely not least, our fresh herb salad. And the best part about this is the crab and the yogurt go down and act more or less like a glue so that we can build up with the herbs, which looks great. It looks like they're growing out of the paratha. And I want this to be all about these fresh herbs, so I want to do as many herbs as I can without it either falling over or starting to look too messy. Where's my mint at? There you are. Let's reevaluate that for a second. Future Justin here. And not to diss past Justin at all, but there's a little bit more to this plate up, and until I actually started editing it did I finally see it, right? So what I did was I did a little bit of searching back in the food blogger archives to find where I got the inspiration for this plate up was, and it actually comes from an old Noma dish that I used to plate when I would help out snack section there. So this was beautiful composition of toast, cod roe, and wild herb blossoms and powdered vinegar. So I think that's super funny that I managed to do not only the rectangle shape, which I got that from, and then the herbs flowering out of it, but even the flavors, like in this dish, match super similarly to the one that I'm plating up here. So you've got like the ocean flavor, the minerality from the crab and the cod roe on both ends, plus the vinegar powder and the yogurt also the same, and then all those fresh herbs. So I just thought that was super interesting. I only thought of it now in the edit. I was like, that looks really familiar. Why did I plate it like that? But now I know, and now you know. So back to past Justin. I'm gonna get down here for this taste shot. And there we have it, our crab paratha with a ton of fresh herbs. Let's taste it out. See how that doesn't fall apart like that? That's exactly what we want. I could have wanted a little bit more crab, like build it up even higher. Maybe do like a thin layer of yogurt on the paratha itself, and then do a thick layer of crab salad on it, and build the herb salad up on top of that. But I also like the idea of having like a burst of yogurt when you eat that bite. Like your tongue would basically pull off that big pile of yogurt, and that would provide a little bit of a different texture as opposed to the crab. I fear that if you kind of just spread it along the entire paratha, you would get this really monotonous eating experience. Regardless, and as most things happen on the show, it goes from something in my head into something that we eat. So thanks so much for watching DoD episode 10. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. Did I miss any herbs? Does any one of you have that weird hereditary thing where you can't eat cilantro? I'd love to know so I can limit my usage of cilantro for you. I'm Justin Khanna. Have a good one.